Good morning and welcome to Morning Manners. Our guest this morning is definitely no stranger to us. She's a mother, she's an athlete. She made history by becoming the first woman to win 5 track and field medals in a single Olympic. She has Belizean heritage. She's definitely an overcomer. This morning, our guest is Marion Jones. She's here to share a portion of her story with us. Marion, good morning and welcome.
Good morning, Rhonda. Thank you. Let me tell you how excited I am. When I first got a chance to meet you virtually, a few weeks back, I think you were on the webinar, one of the webinars that I was hosting, and you shared where you're from and what you do, and that potentially we could connect. Let me tell you, I was excited because in all of this time that I have stepped away from the spotlight, I haven't had the good fortune or the pleasure of speaking with anybody from my home country. And I don't know if it's for on that end, nobody reaching out, but I mean, the fact that I can now speak with you and share a bit about where I'm at, where I was, where I'm going, and the target audience are my people. It's very special for me.
Marion, I really appreciate that because I aim to find heroes that look like us, and you are exactly what we're looking for. You represent a lot of hope for a lot of people. I want to go back to your early childhood. Tell us, where did you grow up and how?
Well, I'm originally from California. My mom raised my brother and I. My brother's 5 years older than I am. Born in Belize. And when he was quite young, my mom brought him up to the States. So Los Angeles area specifically was where I was born, Rhonda. And I grew up in the surrounding communities around there.
When you were young, what were your dreams? What did everybody says, oh, I want to be this or I want to be that. What were your dreams as a child?
Well, let me give you a quick background story, Rhonda. When I was around, I don't know, maybe 6, 7 years old, Princess Diana was getting married, right? And I sat in front of the television with my mom, and I witnessed it, right? Like this incredible ceremony. And there was this long red carpet, Rhonda, that the late princess, walked down with her long train. And I asked my mom, I says, Mom, why, what's the significance of the red carpet? And she says, little girl, for very important people, they roll out the red carpet. And I said, oh, so everywhere I go in my life, there's going to be a red carpet that I walk on, huh? She says, well, you can control that or not. So anyways, that's just a fun story. But in 1984, Rhonda, I was 9 years old, living in the Los Angeles area, and the Olympic Games came to Los Angeles in 1984. And that was my first significant encounter with anything Olympic related. My mom specifically took me out to the Olympic parade, which back in those days they would have for the American athletes before the games, right? So I remember being on the streets and watching the Olympians be paraded down and enjoying that. And then that summer, Rhonda, sitting in front of my television and watching the games for the first time that I can remember, and being totally transfixed, inspired that whatever I was seeing, I needed and wanted to be a part of it. Didn't know at that moment that it was going to be the sport of athletics, but I knew that I wanted to experience whatever those athletes were experiencing when they crossed that finish line.
What first ignited your passion in track and field?
Very early on, my brother, my mother identified that there was something very unique about my physical ability when it comes to anything athletic, sports related. Unique in that I was faster than everybody else my age. I was stronger. I was more confident. And that was developed by my brother, who I mentioned already. Rhonda is 5 years older than me. When he starts to pick his kid sister to be on his team in our neighborhood sports, that was the early indication that there was something special. And then once I started to participate in school age sports, it was very apparent by myself, my mom, and the coaches that this little girl, aka me, was different in that I was faster. And so my mom asked me, well, do you want to try any sports? This was probably 5 or 6 years old, Rhonda. And I said, of course, I want to try everything. So I tried the sport of gymnastics, which I loved. I tried soccer, which my mom and my brother were the coaches. I tried track and field. I tried a number of sports, and track and field just from an early age just really stuck with me.
You speak of your mom a lot, so I'm going to imagine that she's the parent that had the most impact in your life. So I'm just going to assume that. And then how so?
Well, that would be a correct assumption on your part, Rhonda. My parents were divorced when I was, I don't know, 2 or 3 years old. My mom was the custodial or the main parent in my life. My father made decisions to distance himself from my upbringing. And so it all fell in onto my mom's hands, and she was incredible. She made sure that my brother and I had a childhood whereby we got everything that we needed and occasionally something that we wanted. But knowing that my mom hailed from a familial situation that was hard, in that her father had my grandmother passed away when my mother was very young. My mom was raised in Monkey River. And when my grandmother passed away, my grandfather needed to take my mother and my uncle, Godwin Hulse, there into the city because he needed to go and work. So my grandfather traveled to Guatemala and would send money back to relatives who were raising my mother and my uncle. Right? And so that situation was very hard for my mom, not to have her mother and her father having to be away working. And there was a lot that transpired that made it very hard. And so when she made the decision, Rhonda, to come up to the States to raise my brother and I, it was tough. It was tough. My mom was very young at that point. And although there were distant relatives in the States, she did it all on her own, figured it out, made the point that her kids were just going to get an opportunity of a lifetime, and she was going to do whatever she needed to do to make that happen. And so she's been instrumental in my brother and my life, and where we are today.
That is a success all by itself. If anybody knows Belize and they know where Monkey River is, you will know that, especially back in the day, just to get out of Monkey River was a feat. I mean, even now, it's still a feat to get out of Monkey River. So to get out of Monkey River, I would imagine in the 60s or in the 70s, is definitely a big deal.
My mom went a month ago or something, went back and visited Monkey River, and the stories that she shares in that, not all that much has changed in that area. But it's actually, I didn't, when I visited, and I visited a number of times, I never gotten the opportunity to go out to Monkey River yet. Hopefully on my next visit.
Oh, yes. You have to get a chance to go to Monkey River. Monkey River is it's eroding, so you want to go before it's all gone. That's a story for another day. You have experienced what the world would see as success in your life, and I would imagine that your image or idea of success has shifted with the times in your life. Let's elaborate a little bit about that.
Well, I've always found, Rhonda, that success is also part of a season. right? When you're a teenager, your idea of success is much different than probably Rhonda, yours and mine now. And I can certainly identify different seasons in my life where I thought that, whoa, that's successful. And now in hindsight, I look back and I'm saying, I kind of laugh because it is not. But in regards to the season of my life in my 20s in particular, where success came my way very quickly, Rhonda, and when I say success, I mean fame and fortune and all that encompasses that, the answer is yes. I'm almost 50 now, and my idea of success has shifted significantly in that now I see success as how many people I can positively impact. And it pertains to sharing my story, Rhonda, with the hopes that people can learn from it, can grow, can learn the tools on how to specifically, if and when they get knocked down or they see some type of failure in their life, some type of setback, Rhonda, they know and learn the tools that they don't have to stay stuck in that space of setback, in that space of mistake, in that space of failure, that they can learn the tools on how to fight back, and how to reinvent and reframe who they are, and move forward. And again, find success if they ever had it initially.
I love that, because that's exactly where I want to take the conversation now. You've experienced, the world would say, some extreme highs and then some extreme lows. How difficult was it for you to rebuild, and what fueled your determination to do so?
The difficulty level, Rhonda, was if you have one of those machines and it goes to the left, as in it's very easy, and you go all the way to the right, Rhonda, and it screams red, red, red for high level of difficulty. Mine would be off of that chart. Okay, I would have to say, and arguably most would also say. It has been difficult because when you're such a public figure, and understandably so, with the amount of success that I have, with the type of, and this is not me, Rhonda, saying, Marion, just the type of charisma that I have been blessed to have, a lot comes along with that, right? A lot of fame, a lot of spotlighting. And so when poor choices happen in my case, and so much despair, I can say, and so many negative things happen in my career, in my world, there's certainly going to be so much pushback if and when I want to come back into the spotlight, or if and when I need a platform to share what I'm doing. So the pushback, the criticism from many has been aplenty, right? A lot of doors have been closed in my face. A lot of people don't necessarily want to hear what I have to say. And I understand why, Rhonda. This is not at all me saying, I don't get it, why people don't accept me fully or don't want to have conversations. I understand it all. But that, I think, Rhonda, is what sets me apart from many, that as many doors that have been closed, or no's that I have received, not no's on the face, but NO's, the fact that I will not allow that to slow me down, no pun intended, or have me look at a different career path. I know that where I'm at right now, not physically, but even physically, but just emotionally, in the fact that I know exactly this is what I've been meant to do. I don't wish my story on anybody, Rhonda. I think very few people can have withstood what I have. And so I also like to say, I am proud to say that I have been knocked down and that I'm back, because it has not been an easy task whatsoever. And I'm sorry if I don't remember your second part of your question, Rhonda, if I did not answer.
You answered it perfectly, because we have a few more questions to go. But really and truly, just the fact that you got back up is a part of your success. you've spoken about your commitment in helping others, recover or avoid mistakes or similar mistakes to the ones that you have made. Can you tell us about the work that you've been doing lately?
Well, yes, I am so fortunate, Rhonda, to have been placed in a situation whereby at the beginning of this year, I met a woman that thinks so very similarly to how I think. She happens to be the author of a New York Times best-selling book. Her name is Suzanne Evans, and she has this company by the name of Driven. Driven is a company whereby you coach, mentor, you teach entrepreneurs on the steps to succeed, to find success. And so I met Suzanne Evans at the beginning of the year. We partnered whereby I can share my experiences. I can also share my passion of training people physically. So I've been doing that for over a decade, personal training, aligning the mind, the body, and the heart. And you couple that with entrepreneurs who are trying to come back as well, Rhonda, trying to come back from some type of failure, trying to find success, trying to reframe, like I said, and reinvent themselves. And so that is currently what I do. I several times in a month, I will physically train people. In addition, I will coach them with mindset calls. We have webinars sharing the steps on how to find success again. And if you are in need of a comeback, this is the type of community that you should be a part of. And it's something that I am so incredibly passionate about, and something also, Rhonda, that I dreamt of for the past 10 years. How can I share what I do, which is I have a passion for fitness, right? Like that's an easy one to understand, right? And then you somehow put that together, Rhonda, with the idea that I know not everyone can relate to being like a champion athlete or an Olympic champion. I also know that not everybody, Rhonda, can relate to having gone to prison, let's say that, right? But I know that every person, every adult on this planet can relate to some type of failure in their life. Everybody, whether they admit it or not. Failure in my world can be relationship failure, right? The person whom you thought was the one is not, right? Another type of failure can be failure in your career. You've made poor choices. You lost money. You've bankrupted the court. That's a type of failure. And it could be a lot of other things. And so the idea that there are a lot of celebrities, Rhonda, out there, and we can't really relate to them for whatever reason, right? And what's interesting and unique about my situation, and I don't even call myself a celebrity, Rhonda, but this idea that there is someone whom the world knows has seen the heights of success, right? They also know it's been well documented and spoken about that a lot has been lost. Right? And then if you follow the timeline, Rhonda, you're like, wait, she was here, made poor decisions, lost it all, but wait, she's here again? She has the ability to command attention from Good Morning America and all of these different entities that are interested in her story. How did she come from here to there, right? And so that's what I teach, that, okay, I get it. We're not exactly alike, but we're more alike than what people think.
I like that. And that draws me now to ask, people are thinking, how did you do it? Like, what was the biggest motivating factor that you say, you know what? This can't be the legacy that I will leave behind. I have to change my narrative. What was the thing that made you say, you know what? I, Marion Jones, will fix this story before I leave this earth?
There's a few that I will share with you, Rhonda. The one that I have shared, not all that often, is this idea that my mother, my uncle, my grandfather, my grandmother did not struggle to give their kids, their grandkids, their descendants. They didn't struggle for nothing. That my grandfather traveling to Guatemala and working and working and working, right? And sending money back to raise his kids, and my mom coming up to the States to find her way, right? Was not for nothing. And that although I veered off the beaten path and made choices that caused a lot of disgrace and disappointment, I was not going to allow that to be my narrative, to be my end game. So that was my first source of motivation. My second source of motivation, Rhonda, was the fact that I have 3 kids, right? My kids know the whole story, and they know the timeline. And it was important for me, Rhonda, to be a living example to them, Rhonda, that once you get knocked down, and we all do, they haven't yet, but at some point they will. Something in their world will crash, right? And they will have to make a decision, Rhonda, that one, they can stay in that dark space, right? And fester in it, stay there, stay, as I call it, stuck. Or they can use their mom as an example that, hold on, my mom was this, face these consequences, but she didn't allow the world to dictate who she was. She fought tooth and nail to find her way back. And so when you have those two motivating factors, Rhonda, like there's no, people say, how'd you do it? Well, if you look at those, there you go. It's fairly simple to say there's no way that I was going to stay there, right? I had my grandmother, my grandfather, my great-grandparents, my mother, right? And my kids. Wait, what? I have them all hyping me up, high-fiving me on the back, in my heart, in my head. There's no way that I was going to stay stuck.
When you say that, you really remind me of a Caribbean woman, because that is the spirit of Caribbean people. And that coupled with the fact that that you're a star athlete, your competitive nature, I guess, is one of the things that forces you to want to do better for yourself and your family as well. You've been through a lot of changes in your life, like most people, but your changes were documented by the world, for the world to see. What has been the most transformative change that you've experienced?
Oh, what a great question, Rhonda. I would say the most transformative change that I've experienced, like throughout my world, throughout my life, is this idea that family is the most important part of your life cycle. And I can certainly identify, Rhonda, moments whereby I wasn't okay or went astray. It was during the time that I made the decision to distance myself, right? For lots of reasons that we don't have time to get into, right? But the moment there was a reconnection, right? There was a moment of mom saying, I'm here, right? And me allowing that relationship to blossom, and other parts of my family and my tight core, knowing that not everybody that high fives you, smiles at you, talks to you is your friend or your supporter. The earlier on that I realized that, the better I saw things becoming.
How do you view your legacy today, and what do you want people to remember most about Marion Jones?
I would say that it would be a fair description of where I'm headed, my legacy. If someone was to say, and her story is not done yet, right? And I would be extremely satisfied, if that was a description, that her story is not done yet. And ultimately, the story was one of a fighting spirit that refused to be extinguished, right? And I think that would be a good description of what it all looked like in my world, right? Like this idea that you talked about, a competitive spirit, Rhonda. Yes, that's part of it. But I go back to, you said like this like Caribbean, like woman, and it's like, for me, it's this like Belizean spirit that cannot be contained, that the world tried to contain and tried to put a lid on, Rhonda, and a nice tight box. They even taped it up for a little while, right? And here I was like pounding until that top of that box flew off. And now they're like, oh, shoot. All right. Oh, shoot. Can we do now?
What accomplishment fills you with the most pride?
Oh, my kids. Oh, Rhonda, my kids. I have a 21-year-old, a 17, and a 15-year-old, many say spitting image of me, who will not be contained. My daughter is fire and ice, and I am now just sitting, waiting for her and my boys to take over the world. But they are my proudest accomplishment.
As you sit here today, what is your greatest wish?
My greatest wish are for my kids to be able to live fearlessly, without prejudice, without judgment, and become exactly what they were intended to become. That is my biggest wish.
What are your final thoughts for today? Is there anything you'd like to leave us with?
Well, Rhonda, I'm glad you said for today, because for a second there, I thought, what is this the end? But I don't know about this.
No, not yet.
I would say, Rhonda, I would hope that your listeners would be inspired by what they've heard. I would hope that someone who is hearing this interview would step away saying to themselves that they were put here on this earth for more, right? For more love, right? For more significance, for more fortune, whatever it looks like, that they do not have to, Rhonda, stay stuck in whatever space they are. It could even be a physical stuck. Like maybe someone who's hearing this and they're like, I cannot leave this space because of family, because of this. And I hope that they hear my story and know that they do not have to stay there, right? They do not have to stay in a box, Rhonda. They don't, right? They don't have to stay in a relationship box. If they're in a relationship where there's abuse, or they're in a relationship where they don't see a way out, they don't have to stay there, right? Or if they're in a financial crisis, right? They can find the tools to start to build, right? Start to get back to where they were and then beyond. That is my hope today, specifically for your listeners and viewers, that they know they do not have to stay there, that they do not have to be, Rhonda, their biggest mistake.
I like that. And I know I didn't ask this, but I didn't write this one down, but I would like to know how people can see and hear more from Marion Jones. Where can we go to find more from you? The new you at that.
Thankfully, Rhonda, there's a number of ways now. For the last decade, I purposefully stepped away. And so it was very, very hard to get in touch with me. But we will make sure there's Marion, I have a website. But we'll make sure that your listeners, they have all the access to get in contact with me. Also, of course, I'm across every social media platform now, and TikTok and Instagram and Facebook, and there's a website, and we're going to share email addresses so that people can see and hear from me and know that I am here to help. And whatever is needed, I go back to what I shared initially, Rhonda, in that I've had very few, if any, folks from back home reach out to me in regards to wanting to hear my thoughts on anything, specifically athletics, specifically the stadium or the state of athletics in the country. And so I hope that this program opens up some doors and some opportunity for folks who want to connect, that it's readily available to do so.
Marion, I want to thank you, and I look forward to the possibility of having future conversations with you, because I know that there's a lot that you can contribute, not only to Belize, but Caribbean people on a whole. We have a huge audience in the Caribbean, and I think can benefit from you in many, many ways. Again, I want to say thank you for taking the time. Thank you for sharing. I fully appreciate this opportunity, and I look for another opportunity as the future comes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rhonda.
Bye-bye.